A guilty plea for shooting at police and posting photos of suspected shoplifters to a documentary looking at alleged abuses and arson on a college campus. Diane Rutherford has a look back at the crimes, charges, and trials that we covered in 2024.
The former academy at Ivy Ridge near Ogdensburg was one of the biggest stories of the year locally. A Netflix documentary dropped in March with former attendees reporting that they had been physically, sexually, and psychologically abused. The St. Lawrence County District Attorney's Office promised to investigate the complaints.
You're talking about incidents that happened, in some cases, over 20 years ago.
John Free, one of the former Ivy Ridge employees accused of wrongdoing, spoke with 7 News.
Kids took some beatings in there.
Not long after that interview, Free was charged in an unrelated case, the murder of John Barr, who was found dead in his home in Rensselaer Falls in May.
I didn't do it.
That's what murder suspect Jonathan Melendez shouted in early January. He's accused of killing 88-year-old Rena Eves by repeatedly striking her with a hammer. In Lewis County, a Pennsylvania man was accused of murdering his friend at a Loudville Lodge in January. A SUNY Potsdam student was charged with arson in February after allegedly setting fire at one of the college's residence halls. That same month, a former Potsdam police officer accused of choking a suspect took a plea deal. Matthew Seymour was sentenced to a 1-year conditional discharge. In March, an argument over littering ended with a machete attack outside this Little Caesars pizza place in Watertown. 2 people went to the hospital.
He cut it all the way to the bone. He cut through the tendon.
Watertown High School student Shaquan Bullocks pleaded guilty in connection with the attack in July. Peter Schroy of Carthage pleaded guilty to manslaughter for a crash that killed a passenger in his pickup truck. His sentence? 3 years in prison. In May, Richard Billings of Messina was arrested for allegedly murdering his 89-year-old mother, Mary Billings. That same month, a Colton man was accused of attempted murder and 40 other criminal counts. Elijah Murrow allegedly tried to kill an unnamed person with a weapon in April. In June, Kenneth Durham, an Ogdensburg man with a long criminal history, pleaded guilty to murdering a teenager on a city street. Also this summer, a Pillar Point man pleaded guilty to charges for his involvement in a standoff with police at his home last year. Nathan Crump fired several rounds at officers before flames engulfed his home. He pleaded guilty to 14 counts of attempted murder, 1 for each of the officers involved. In October, the double murder trial of Adam Smith began. He was accused of killing Ronald Huck Durham and William Freeman. The jury found him guilty. In November, a Messina couple was sentenced to prison in connection with the beating death of a 3-year-old child. The toddler's mother, Caitlin Cyrus, got 15 years to life. Her boyfriend, Giovanni Vega, got 25 years behind bars. 2024 saw the use of social media and technology to fight crime. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office used artificial intelligence to nab a suspect on child pornography charges. Even private citizens got in on the action. The owner of the general store in Watertown posted photos of suspected shoplifters on Facebook. He told us this tactic to scare away thieves worked. That's a look at the year in crimes and trials. Diane Rutherford, 7 News.